Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to the Legal Forum, here only on the Islam channel with me, Lee Clark. In this series, we've partnered up with Khan Solicitors and we'll be discussing common topics like family law, immigration, landlord and tenant disputes and domestic violence. I'm pleased to welcome Shahid Dastgir Khan, senior partner and founder of the firm, who will discuss today's topic, which is crime. Shahid's experience and expertise combined with skillful strategies is the secret of his proven success record over 3 decades. He has represented clients in multi-million proceeds of Crime Act cases, offences against the person and sexual offences. Shahid, a very warm welcome to you and welcome to Legal Forum. Now, crime is a very big topic. We've had a quick chat before today's programme. Tell me a little bit about topics and categories of crime, because it's quite vast, crime per se, isn't it?
Yes, historically, crime has evolved over a period of time, but if you look at the history, then those who were very powerful needed to protect themselves, meaning their property and their person. So, going back centuries, the offences would be, for example, offences against the person and offences against property of a person, mainly very, very rich people, for which the punishment was very severe. Obviously, with the passage of time, technology, etc., the nature and diversity changed.
I mean, let's get back to and go right to the very beginning. If you find yourself in a position where you are arrested by the police for whatever aspects of crime they believe that you've done, what are your rights and what should you do in the first instance if that happens to you?
Well, your most important right is to have access to a lawyer, a solicitor. So when a police stops you and says, I suspect you have committed a crime and I'm going to arrest you, then they must administer what we call a caution, which effectively means that whatever a person says, once they are cautioned, it could be produced in evidence, as evidence in a court of law, whether in a magistrate's court or in a crown court. Therefore, it is very important that a person exercises their most fundamental right, which is right to silence. And the person being questioned can simply say, I am not saying anything and I shall not answer any questions without me seeing a lawyer. So can you arrange a lawyer? And there are duty solicitors available.
Who advises you of your rights inside the police station other than the policemen themselves? Is there somebody else within a legal situation, like a custody sergeant or somebody like that, who advises you what you should and shouldn't say? Because I would imagine in a lot of cases, unless you're a career criminal, you probably have never been in that situation before, and which way you go and which way legally you can go is probably quite scary for a lot of people, I would imagine.
Any police officer interviewing a suspect must very clearly tell the suspect that you have the right to have your legal representative present before I commence interview under caution. So a suspect should not be interviewed without legal representative being present, unless the suspect says, I do not need representation, in which case they will say so, it will be recorded, written down, and then the interview can commence. But that would be inadvisable in most cases.
So I suppose in the terms when obviously you have asked for a legal professional, a solicitor, duty solicitor to come to see you, then obviously during that waiting period you would be, I suppose, kept in the police station in a cell, I suppose.
Yes, the procedure can be quite stressful.
Traumatic. Yeah.
And traumatic as well in some cases. These police stations are not a very nice place to be, you know. So it is the custody officer will take down the details. They will ask, for example, name, address, telephone, contacts, any belongings. Everything is locked. Custody record has to be very, very carefully prepared. Every single thing has to be locked, and that procedure takes some time. And after that, the suspect is taken to a cell and told that, look, we are arranging, for example, for a duty solicitor to come, and when that happens, I will let you know. Or the officer in charge of the case may say, we are too busy. It's a Friday night or whatever. We don't know when you will be interviewed. So then obviously the rights come into play. Normally, police can keep a person at a police station for 24 hours, up to 24 hours. Within 24 hours, maximum 24 hours, just before, either the person should be charged and taken and bailed, or if not charged and further investigations are required, then they should be taken before a magistrate who will extend the time. Although the officer in charge of the police station can extend the time by a further 24 hours. So it could be up to 48 hours.
Is there any time that a police officer can try to convince you that the interview should happen without legal advice? Is there, or do you stop any interviews, refuse to carry on until that representation is there?
Sometimes police officers do encourage you, come on, just sit down, it's not very long. It will just take half an hour. I just want to ask you a few questions and then you can go home. Now, you should be very careful when something like that is put to you. Particularly if you do not know very clearly what your rights are or what is the nature of the offense that you're likely to be charged with.
Can you ask them at that point?
Yes,
can you say to them, so yes. Why am I here? What is your belief that you have kept me in this position?
Yes, indeed. And that is what one should do.
Okay.
Why I have been stopped. And also, it is important to be polite.
I was just about to say that, because if you're shouting and screaming, then you're not going to get the desired results, are you?
And the courts, particularly magistrates' courts, which are known for rough and ready justice, they are always very proactive and sometimes tend to very much believe what the police officers would normally say. Whereas when you go to Crown Court, where there is a jury, then things can be different, and the conduct of an officer or suspect will be very carefully scrutinized. So one should be careful in how they conduct themselves, yes.
So it serves you well to just breathe and count to 10 if you do want to get, shall we say, upset in a situation, because you could find yourself, although you know you're not guilty of a particular crime, you could find yourself charged with something completely different, which you're not there in the first place.
That's right.
For. Is there a situation that if you find yourself in a particular police station, wherever that may be, that a police officer or custody sergeant is not allowed to put you into a holding cell for whatever reason? Is there a medical condition that forbids that particular situation from happening? Is there somebody who has particular conditions for confined spaces, stress? Is there anything that we can help our viewers out with if they do find themselves in this horrible situation, possibly, that we can give them a bit of information to maybe help them in that situation? Is there anything that they can not be locked away for?
There have been cases, it happens from time to time, that someone is suffering from a condition which can become serious if they are confined.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they need immediate medication. For example, the medication is at home, and it's time to take their medication, without which they could have problems. A doctor should be called. And again, when a suspect complains or says that I am not feeling well, this should all be logged in by the custody officer. The officer in charge of the case should take the person to the custody suite, try and make them feel comfortable.
Now, Shahid, is there a time when, if you have been stopped by a police officer, you should be able to talk to them to maybe convince them or trying to stop them from taking you to a police station to be in custody?
Yes, you can simply say, look, I think this is a question of mistaken identity. I'm not the person, I've done it, who has caused a disturbance or whatever. And a good police officer may recognize that this may be a question of a false complaint or a mistake being made somewhere, and let the person go.
Now, the situation we've gone through, being arrested or taken to police station, put into custody, going through questioning. If something moves on further from that and the police charge you and then you go to court, there are, obviously I'm aware of two courts, Crown Court or Magistrates Court and Crown Court. What's the difference between the two, and do they serve particularly different crimes?
Yes. Magistrate court are known for serve two purposes. Okay. One, small cases, and their jurisdiction is limited to a maximum of 6 months sentencing. And secondly, anyone who is charged with an offense, or is likely to be, even whatever offense, even it's a very serious offense, the first point of appearance is magistrate's court. That's why when you watch television, you say so-and-so was picked up for murder or arson or whatever and produced at a magistrate's court.
So that is the first step, regardless. You can't go straight to Crown Court, no?
No, okay. No, you can't. And then, once you are there, the charge will be read out, etc. And some of the offences are triable either way. Some are summary trials, summary offences, for example, a very small theft can be tried by magistrate's court. Maximum if the magistrates think the sentence is likely to be a short custodial sentence of 2 or 3 months or a non-custodial sentence, they can try, but the person should also, the person would have no option if it is a summary offense, minor offense, let's say. And an example of it could be a road traffic offense, for example, overspeeding or whatever. Drink drive offenses are tried by magistrates.
Is there ever a time, if you're summoned to court, magistrate's court, that you, at the time maybe you said to a police officer, it wasn't me, and they believe it was, and you've been summoned to court. Do you always have to attend court, or is there a time when you can say, actually, no, it was me, and you kind of plead guilty by post, or do you always have to go through with the court date that's been given to you?
There are some offences, and there's a procedure these days which is available, which enables you to plead guilty by post, which means that if you pay, for example, so there's a condition attached to it. If you plead guilty, you will take 3 points if it's a driving offence, for example, plus a fine of £100, providing you plead guilty. Okay, by post, you get credit, and the credit is a third of whatever. And there are scales which are set out, and the levels of fines or imprisonment, it's all laid out. So if it's straightforward, for example, someone is taking away, driving away, and there's a video of the
yeah.
person. It's a straightforward case, and the solicitor will say, okay, yes, I plead guilty. You know, there's no point in saying no comment interview or whatever, which we can touch upon if you wish what no comment interviews are. So it's advisable to plead guilty at the earliest possible opportunity and get the maximum credit.
I see when you watch TV programs, and I know TV is a different thing, obviously, well, not different, but it's not always how it would be happening to you. When you see people maybe on television being arrested for a drugs crime, and then you hear later on at the end of the program that they were taken to court and fined £50 or £100, and then you think, well, that didn't seem to be a lot for that particular case, and then you see somebody who'd speeding and got 3 points or 6 points and was fined £500, sorry. Is the fine relevant to earnings, ability to pay? I mean,
yes.
So that is a relevant factor, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a means test that is done, and once a person pleads guilty, etc., and before sentencing, one would be required to complete a financial information form.
Okay. But do you ever know people who maybe who are probably trying to not pay as much and fill in that form, should we say, incorrectly or not in a truthful matter to try and pay less of a fine? Do the magistrates' courts or the Crown courts check your means and ability to pay?
Very good question. Magistrates have a very heavy case load to go through. Over 90% of the cases are small cases and disposed of in a magistrate's court. So they use their own judgment and discretion. So they're thinking more of what level of fine will be all right, and just based on what the person has said and what their circumstances are likely to be financially, etc. Having heard the mitigation speech by their defense lawyer, they would have made up their mind.
Okay.
So the means test is there, but obviously if someone is quite rich, then they might sort of impose a slightly higher.
So you could have a case where there are two people charged with exactly the same crime and found guilty of exactly the same crime, but because one has more disposable income than the other, they have a higher penalty to pay. Would that be the case? Or?
There's a range.
A range, okay.
So for example, the range is between 500 and £1,000.
Okay.
So and the offence, all things being equal, someone with the means might get to pay £750. Another person perhaps £500 or less, and given a much longer time to pay.
If somebody is convicted of a particular crime, and say for instance in the United Kingdom on a visa, they're found guilty of a magistrate's court situation, should we say, does that affect the visa status as it currently stands? Could they be faced with deportation, having to leave the country? How is that affecting them individually? Or is every case different?
No, that does sometimes happen. That's again a good question. What happens is, there are two ways of dealing with this matter, with this kind of situation. Sometimes an immigration officer will detain the person. Immigration officers have much wider powers to detain someone who is in breach of immigration rules, has overstayed, entered illegally or whatever. So they can then, but the magistrates can also try the person for, it's a separate offense. It's a criminal offense as well as an immigration offense. Most cases are dealt with through administrative procedure, which means under immigration rules, i.e. the person is detained, then administratively they are removed.
Okay.
So they're kept at a detention center and then they are taken to the airport. The paperwork is done within a couple of days. They are put back on the plane or the next available flight, depending on what is available, and they're out.
Okay.
In some cases, if a person has been a persistent offender, for example, and this has happened 2 or 3 times over a period of 4 or 5 years, and that person has no basis for staying in the country and has also committed some criminal offenses in the past or on this occasion, then the let us say take an example of possessing drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Then the magistrates can make a recommendation that the person should be, they will fine, and also maybe there's an imprisonment for 3 or 4 months, maximum is 6 months, let's say, and as soon as they complete that term, they should be removed.
Okay.
They should be deported, yes.
I tell you, I think that we could do a whole new show and another show completely on this topic, Shahid. But listen, thank you very much for joining us today on Legal Forum. It's been a pleasure, as always, to have your wonderful insights into this fascinating topic. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So there you have it, some important and helpful information on crime this week. We hope the scenarios discussed on today's show can give you a better understanding on today's topic. I'd like to thank our guests, Shahid Dastgir Khan, Senior Partner and Founder of Khan Solicitors. Please bear in mind the views and opinions expressed in Legal Forum should be considered for informational purposes only and not case-specific advice. All topics are discussed in a generic nature, and it's important that you consult either with a CAB, law centre or solicitor before relying on it. If you'd like to find out more about the Legal Forum or the topic discussed today, then please do email us at legalforum@islamchannel.tv. For now, it's goodbye from me, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.